Here's the latest project come in to the shop at Midway Restorations. Just kind of want to give you an overview on this car. It's a 1970 Mustang Fastback. It was in a passed down from a family member to somebody locally here, and it had a paint job on it before. Not the greatest of paint jobs. It's hard to see some of this stuff, but there's a lot of bubbling even on top of the fender there. The car is a 302 automatic, and the color is some sort of a medium blue. The owner took the engine and transmission out, pulled the interior and door panels, and I'm going to go through it and straighten up the body and get it looking good and solid again like it would have new. Some of the things that are going to have to happen though is there's some black door molding that was not factory. That's going to go away on both sides, of course. We've got some issues down here. Doors rusted out, a lot of Bondo, front fender, and these are just little spots that I've hit just where the biggest bubbles were. Here's the back door area. Come up the body line. This isn't too bad. There's some bubbling up here, but there's lead under that seam, and there's a bunch of bubbles right here. As far as the roof goes, there's a variety of dents. You can see some of them here. As I move the camera across, you can see more dents. Those will have to be addressed. Further back, the passenger side quarter panel, it's got some Bondo on it, but it's thin. This is really good from what I'm seeing. I'll have to expose the rest of this to make sure. Across the back, things look pretty decent, even though all the chrome was pitted and stuff like, you know, the old pony running in the gas there, gas cap. We're going to have to replace all that stuff. All the chrome's going to get replaced probably. Over here, left quarter panel, this is really bad. I don't know if you can see that. Half my fingernail's gone and inside of that Bondo that's been layered on there, and this will have to probably be cut off. Same way with the front area here. There's some bad stuff going on here. That's just poor job on whoever did it. Apparently they didn't treat the metal before applying any fillers or anything, or they used a cheap Bondo and allowed moisture to get in there. There's some up here on the roof, surface rust. You can just see the little brown spots. Again, that's cheap, you know, store brand Bondo, and it doesn't resist moisture, so stuff gets right through it. Bunch of bubbles down here in the bottom of the door. You can kind of see some right here, and those will all be exposed as they go along. Front edge of the door, pretty bad. This is a really deep hole, and you know, this is pretty common with these Mustangs. Here you go, left front fender, again a bunch. Just real quick, I wanted to show you some of the interior. The owner, he had the right thought. He wanted to restore the car, but he went with fiberglass, which a lot of people try to do, and after he got so far involved with it, he realized that that was probably not the best choice. So I'm here popping the fiberglass loose, and you can just see, and obviously that sounds bad, but that's the problem with fiberglass. It doesn't really bond to the metal, and all these little light areas right here, that's where it's not bonded. So what's going to happen is, even though the floor pan is really not bad, it's got a lot of thin spots and a lot of little holes. So I'm going to take probably cut out, well, I know I'm going to cut out both floor pans and replace those. I'll save the seat risers because they're good. There's some repair work up here. As I take the fender off later, you'll see that there's some holes that were filled with fiberglass. Might be able to even see it from under here. Yeah, you can kind of see the light flashing where my hand covers it up. So those areas have to be, you know, make little patches to fix them, both sides, and go through the whole car and get it all back to straight and looking good. Currently the owner is undecided on what color he's going to go with. He has suggested grabber blue, which I love that color, but we have to work on getting some stripes on it. So this is the next project. Thought I'd give you a little update on the 70 Mustang fastback project here at the shop. The owner had done some fiberglass repairs to attempt to take care of some rust issues. What we found was that this was here. Basically that was concealing or covering up some rust. And also, this is a mount for your fender. So apparently it had come loose and basically just been bonded on with some fiberglass. What I'm going to have to do here is cut this panel open here, repair this inner structure as best I can, try to replicate it, patch this piece that I've cut out where it's got some holes in it, and then weld that back in to try to give this some more strength. We also found that the floor pan has rusted through and pieces were cut out, and again tried to repair them. This is a shot looking up the dash where the cowl structure has rusted out. Also the vents, kind of hard to see there, but they're rotted, so I got to figure out how to make a new hole and weld that in. Beyond that, there's a few areas here in the back floor pan area that are thin, and definitely on the passenger side there's a hole there that'll have to be I'll have to maybe make a panel or buy a replacement rear section. A couple other things, a little hole up front there, nothing big on that side. And working my way back, I've already talked about the quarter panel in the previous video, and here it is opened up, and this is the piece I cut out that they had pieced in and covered up with a lot of Bondo. There's a new patch panel for Mustangs Unlimited. The only problem is that the outer wheelhouse is also rusted and rotted, so I may get a wheelhouse and just section it off up here somewhere to make a solid wheelhouse so I can mount that patch panel to it. We've also removed glass, which good indication is there's no serious rust at all back here in the corners. Very solid, so that's not going to be an issue. This quarter panel is pretty good. Again, we'll look at this side here. There's the hole in the floor. There's some other areas where you can see through the floor. So this panel I'm a little more concerned with. Front section I can make patches. I can cut out these little areas and make a good solid patch and put in there. Took the front clip off. Found some substantial damage to the driver's side fender, and it had been covered up. Here's the passenger side. I'll have to make a patch panel for that. But apparently this thing had been bumped around. This is the right side, and there was a lot of Bondo here on the edge. You can still see it where they had built it up. The passenger or driver's side fender has some issues here, which I'm a little concerned with. There's a lot of Bondo piled in here to shape this thing, and then here's the a lot of buildup around this section here where the front piece mounts on. But what I found was we removed a bunch of Bondo out of this section. You can kind of look across. All this is dimpled and beat up and hammered out, and I'm not real sure I want to fix this fender. This may come down to getting another one. I mean, it's got a lot of shape issues, and while still good metal, it's really out of shape. So haven't made a solid decision on it yet, but I'm really thinking about just replacing that fender. Other than that, here's the driver's door. I showed earlier some of the damage on it, so I can make patches for these. That's not that big a deal. I'll use I have an old quarter panel I can use from the Camaro project, but I'll have to rebuild all that too down here on the corners, which takes a little bit of work, a little finesse, but I can do it. So that's where the Mustang's at. Well, here's the 70 Mustang. After doing a little more review on some of the damage that I found, I know I discussed this earlier about the cowl and what condition it was in, and I had shown these holes and repair work that was under here. I talked to the owner, and the decision was made to replace the cowl assembly now that they're available. This is a bit different than the 65 or 6, because 65 and 6, the vent panel up here is part of the structure. In these cars, it unbolts, so you have access to it. So of course your wipers mount here and here, but you can pull the rods out from inside, which I've already done. I've also removed the steering column, give me a little more access. There's plastic panels that go right here that I've removed. In fact, that's what these are over here, these panels. Remove those. There's a column. And I'm going to take this, work on cutting off this whole panel today. This upper section here, well, inner and outer pieces. So you'll have the top panel and the bottom panel, which now come as an assembly. And I picked this up from Mustangs Unlimited, and it's a really nice stamping. The metal, pretty heavy. I've dealt with thinner stuff, but this is consistent with what's in the car. So once I get all the seams separated, I'll be able to set this in, and of course it's welded on this edge right here, and then probably some up in those corners. There may be some welds up in here as well, and you can see all along here there's spot welds, and I'll have to break open those spot welds and get this piece off before I can even do some test fitting. Also, when I have this out, I'm going to do some repair work in here on this A-pillar. This is not structurally sound, and it needs to be much better than that before everything goes back together. Show you the other side as well. Again, I removed the plastic panel that was here, splash guard, and this is a much cleaner corner, but underneath as well, this one's got a lot of pinholes in it. So that's the project for today. Okay, I've started cutting loose this cowl panel, and I wanted to show you this piece right here. I'm not sure what they call it exactly, but it's got a series of spot welds that hold it on, and there's some weak areas here, spot weld there, one there, and then these were pretty weak up here in the top. I actually just chiseled underneath it and popped them out. I'm going to try to reuse this piece, because it's probably better than what I could get aftermarket, which is some of these pieces here. looks like that one's probably the driver's side. You can see the stamping. This has a bit of some waviness to it, and it feels a little bit lighter than what this one does. You can kind of hear it. So I'm just going to set this up here just to show you. Not a great fit by any means, but I bought these just in case I wasn't able to reuse the old ones. So that's kind of a given. This isn't going to work well. Just wanted to show you that as I move along. Okay, I've done a little more cutting, and just wanted to show you a few things. What I did is I cut around this perimeter of this seam weld, or weld seam, however you want to label it, and I went on the inside and I used a handy dandy air chisel and I zipped it across right there just to make it a little quicker. So now this piece can come right off. Okay, but one thing you need to make note of, see all these little screws, all these little pieces that held different things onto this car? Leave those there. Don't lose those, because when it comes time to transfer, you want to make sure you get the right screw in the right place. Also, I noticed that these plugs, there was one up here. Man, that thing just shattered when I touched it. So I'm going to take this off, get it out of the way. I just want to show you, whenever you're taking stuff like this apart, see, here's some of the fiberglass repairs that the owner had put in. All these little welds, those little spot welds, normally, depending on the location, you could take a drill and like a unibit and drill through these things, but you don't want to do that with this. You want to use either a spot face tool, and this also has an attachment on it for that makes a hook, or I use a heavy grinder. And what I would do is grind open these welds and separate them. Now, the reason I say don't drill through is because you want to keep this parent metal here solid. So when you drill through, you're just creating a hole. But if you can separate the seam, then the metal that's underneath remains solid, and you can put the new holes in your new panel in the same locations, and whenever you put it on, you can just plug weld those back together. So I'm going to work on separating out this lip here and getting the inner structure out of the way. Okay, I've drilled out some of the spot welds, and this is the top piece, the outer perimeter, let's say. You can see I didn't drill through the parent material of the bottom piece at all. And then I started up here on this front lip, separating it as well. And then once I get that off, then I'll come back in and hit these other welds to get this inner piece out. And then also, there's some spot welds along here. This might be a challenge later on to how I'm going to bond that together. I may end up using panel bonding adhesive to mate this back to the inner kick panel, because I can't weld to it. If you look here, there is no flange. The flange is on the inside. So either I have to use panel bond or I have to weld it from the inside in some way. So, making a little progress. Alright, I've made a little more progress. I've got the lower half of the cowl out, and this is how it looks. You can still see some of how the rust was. Didn't come out too bad. This side was a little more solid, but I know it still has some issues underneath. And then here's some separation. There's an inner flange I was talking about on the other side. Of course, here's the outer flange, and what I like to see here, this is nice and solid, so that's a plus. The bad part is the other side isn't, so we'll go over there and a little better shot now. You can see just how bad this corner is, and what I'll end up doing is cutting out down here somewhere, remaking this. You can see that's the line or the edge of the original piece, and I'll try to duplicate that as best as I can. And then once that's all done, then I'll mock up the cowl and see how it fits. But it's not going to go in yet because I need to fix the floor piece there, and I may start working on the toe kick where this is all rotted out. The customer wants that rebuilt too. So we'll see how it goes from there. Okay, I've opened up the damaged area, removed the rust. I'm going to start off by making a piece, kind of hard to hold there. It's going to go inside of there, and then once I get that in place, then I'll build the outer section that'll cap over that, and that should take care of any problems at this point. Okay, you've seen that part of it. Now, this piece will slide right in there like a puzzle piece. And once that's welded in, then I can continue on with the cowl. And I had to make that piece, and basically I just cut it off of a piece of scrap that I had from an old floor piece. So, a little forming and shaping, and once it's welded and filled in, it'll be just like it's supposed to be. And then I can continue on. The next step I'm going to do is spray some etch weld, self-etching weld through primer, and that way everything underneath will be treated, and I can get all that welded up and it won't cause any rust issues later. And there it is, all welded in place. Appears to have pretty close to the right angles. Come around the other side and I'll show you the passenger side. It's hard to see with all the rust, but pretty much the same thing. Next step will be mocking up the cowl to make sure it fits, but I'm still going to address the floor and probably these vents before I do anything else. So that's the biggest step so far. I'll give you a quick update on the 70 Mustang. We had the sandblaster come by and blast all the outer sheet metal where all that undercoating was. Didn't find anything significant other than the fuel line, which goes through this hole. When I went to remove it, it actually broke in half. Just a heads up on that. That area there, the torque box, traps water and creates rust. These outer panels are good. We've gone down the rockers. They're all nice and solid. We knew there was some issue here, and I'll get back to that in a minute. But the rest of the car, they hit the rain gutters. There's still some sand in there. Went over the floor. I'm rethinking the floor maybe. Got a bunch of holes and little pits. This back section here. And there's some small holes, but the metal's kind of thin in places. There's also some holes here, so I'm really debating on what to do with this floor pan. Didn't do anything in the back. Come around its other side, same deal. You know, blasted rocker panels. These outer areas. Sheet metal up front. Everything's good and solid up here. We also did the interior, and there's a few issues, which isn't uncommon. This is supposed to be solid. Same way back there. And these overlaps, they always end up getting water and dirt trapped in them. So I'm going to have to clean those, cut those out, create some patches for those. Did find some sort of RTV or caulking material, probably put on at the factory around the heater box. Everything else is pretty solid, but I wanted to show you a couple things. Of course, I knew I had an issue with the floor over here, but I started digging around, and back in here you can see the rust where the quarter meets the rocker panel. The factory had installed some sort of this is a very soft, you can still see it's like a tar. Not the best thing, because underneath it is rust. And that's why that rusted right there, and I'm going to have to patch that. But they had this caulking material in there, and you can see the underside of that just holds rust, holds moisture. But let's go to the other side real quick, and I want to show you this the driver's side. Now we knew there was a small issue right there. There's also been some patchwork done, but just take a look. Here's that same area, and I'm just going to dig my screwdriver in here and break that loose. Look at that. All that does is trap moisture and create rust. And then somebody, I don't know if it was done at the factory, but this is like a silicone. This is completely different than a tar. That's a silicone product. I don't know if somebody added that thinking they were going to do something with it, but you can see all this area here I'm going to have to clean up and make a patch for down there. And there's that tar-like material from the factory. See that just scrape off, and underneath there's surface rust. So be wary of that. Okay, here's the Mustang as it sits right now. We had sandblasted all those areas, the inner and outer engine bay, the inner fender area, firewall, and right now we have it in epoxy primer, and the whole car, and that seals up the metal to prevent it from surface rusting again, and it also helps you identify any of the any dents or anything like that. And I've already had some Bondo on here before, or filler, and you can kind of see a little bit of a shadow of those areas. Of course, when we get regular primer on, that'll cover that up. I did, when I was doing the last segment, the battery died on my camera, but I was showing this inner area here, and you can see, I'll move my hand outside where you can see the holes. Obviously I have to address all that and fix it. What I have been working on is the vent holes on the cowl panels, on the toe kicks, let's put it that way. I think I showed in another video, another segment, where this piece was here, and you can just see it was all rotted out. I made up these two pieces on either side and welded those in, and that's what that is too. And here's the other bad piece there on the floor. See if I can zoom in a little bit. Yeah, and there's the bad piece, new piece. Now what I'm working on is I'm going to put the cowl in, and I've already checked so I could drill all my holes and line up where the old holes were or where there's good metal. And I've drilled all the holes already in the cowl panel around the flange. And the only other issue that I'm going to have, and I discussed this earlier, was where this toe kick is. The top of it, I can't weld. There's no access. So I'm going to have to use panel bonding adhesive and apply it here and to the underside of the panel. And I've already marked. I have to bare the metal though. I'll show you there where that line is. That's where I'm going to bare the metal, because you can't use painted metal with panel bonding adhesive. So once that's in place, I can clamp it all down and weld it. Just to show you, this is material, yeah, 3M panel bond adhesive. Works great. From what we understand, it's technically stronger than welds. So that's where we're at. I'm still going to cut the floors out, replace those. A couple other issues like I talked about earlier, haven't addressed yet. After hitting with the blaster and everything, you can see just how bad it is. So next step is to get that cowl back in place. Okay, I've applied the panel bonding adhesive right here on both sides. I stacked it up pretty good, hope you can see that. And I did bare the metal right here, where it's going to make contact. Now I'm going to set it up in place, clamp it all down, and get ready to start welding. Okay, I have the cowl welded in. I went around and did all my spot welds all the way around there. I also made sure it was flush here where the windshield is gonna meet, so you don't want to have any problems with that down the road. Getting ready to install these fender brackets. Now these are the originals. I salvaged them, cleaned them up, sandblasted them, and I'm going to put these back in place and weld them back in exact location where they came out. And just want to show you this real quick. These are the same brackets from Mustangs Unlimited, and the problem I have with them is they're bigger than what was there originally, which doesn't make sense to me, and they're thinner. So if you're looking for, you know, originality, you want to stick with the originals if you can. So I'm getting ready to weld those in. Everything else is in place, and once I get those in, I can move on to something else. Alright, I finished welding these fender brackets. You can see the welds there, and of course up there. So now those are finished. I'll come back, and I'd already ground some of the welds here on this cowl. I'll grind the rest of these down. We'll put some etching primer in here, and then some seam sealer to help keep this clean and dry on the inside. Other than that, I'm going to move on to the next phase, which hopefully is working on these floor pans. I still got a lot of work to do on the passenger side door. You can see it up here. Got a bunch of those rust holes in it, just like the driver's door had. But that'll be the next step. I've already worked on the left side fender. Here's the hood. So Fender's already been patched up. It's got a first coat of rage on it. Okay, I want to show you this door that I'm working on. It's the driver's side door, and you can see it's got a lot of rust problems. And this is just on the front corner. The hinges are up here. So I'm gonna rebuild this whole section right here, piece by piece. So just give you an idea of what I'm working on. Okay, I've made some initial cuts, and what I'm going to do here is take out these pieces and this piece back here, and it exposes the inner structure of the door, which is actually very solid, just a little surface rust. But what I'll do then is I'm going to hand make these pieces together as one so that it fits this shape. And then once I get this piece completed and back in place, then I'll cut off this lower section and I'll hand form a piece to fit that as well. Some of this I may not mess with too much, like this hole here is pretty solid. It's an odd rusted area, but I can weld most of that together. And I may try to weld this area back together too and just grind it back. But I will make the rest of these pieces. Okay, so I've made my first piece. Kind of shaped it like that. And this is going to go in here and fill up this spot. Kind of hard to hold with one hand, but I've got it shaped pretty close. And as I weld it in, I'll continue to push it into location. Once I get that in place, then I can start working on the next piece. Now, it'd be nice if you could just stamp these things out and make it as a patch, but I'm going to have to make it piece by piece because the curves are just too complex. So I'll show you more as I go along. Alright, there's the first piece. That's where those two spot welds were. I duplicated those. And what will happen is I'll grind these welds down and smooth it up, and I'll have a very good transition. This is the piece that I cut out. So you kind of see I've got a little bit of a flare there as it kicks out. And then I'll make this piece, and then I'll work on the lower section. Okay, here I've blended down the welds that I had on that top piece. I've made this piece to fill in. So you gotta do some more welds on it, but you can see I do short little welds. And once I get that together, I'll finish up by making this lower piece down here. Okay, I've got most of it put together, and then I finally made this last piece, which will pop right in here. And when that's all welded in, it should be pretty close to looking like it did when it was new. Okay, there's the end result. Pretty close to the way it looked when it was new. Of course, it's such an odd stamping. There's some variation in anything. All the holes are filled in. Shape follows the contour like it should on both steps here. Now the next step will be to put a little more, there'll be some filler put on just to smooth it up and make it as smooth as can be, like little areas like this, you know, but it's solid now, so it won't hurt to do that. I'll treat the metal and then I'll put some filler on top of that. Okay, as I've done before on this 70 Mustang, I replaced the cowl. We talked about that. I'm going to put the cowl in, replace these filler panels. I've been working on the floors, and currently this floor is ready to go in. And a couple things I wanted to show you. This is the new floor pan right here, and I've trimmed it down to fit. You look on the other side, you can kind of see, step in here. This is the floor pan for the driver's side that's not been trimmed yet. You can see it's got a big corner up here. Come up this way, and it kicks up in this area, which is okay because then you can trim it down as you need. One thing you need to do whenever you do the transfer, this is actually the bolt mount for the seatbelt, and the hole doesn't show up. You have to make the holes for that. So you want to duplicate that, put those in place before you work on the pan. So I've trimmed down this other pan, and you can see here I've kept most of this radius back here in the corner. Everywhere else, it's either a flange overlap, like here, and then on the side where the rocker panel meets the floor pan, it's also a flange. So let me just set that pan in there, see if I can do this one hand. Now I can show you back here in the corner. I had to trim this a little bit where this flange was to make it fit around this existing floor piece, and then everything else has been trimmed down. And what I'll do is I'll weld this all through here. I'll just do a lap weld, and everywhere else up front here, because of the way this floor is shaped, I ended up trimming out this corner, and I'm going to do a butt weld here and in here, and then everywhere else it'll have the plug welds, and then I'll weld in the edge against the inner rocker as well. So making progress on it, trying to get this car done. Okay, I pulled the pan back out because I forgot to show you something. Down here in this frame rail, you'll see a lot of rust. What I'm going to do is I'm going to treat that with a rust seal and let it dry before I ever put the pan back in. While you got this thing apart, be proactive and try to take care of the rest of the metal. Then on the underside, where this gets welded on, I'm going to put a weld through primer so that also has some protection. Just want to let you know. Alright, so I got the right side floor pan in. I got a little excited and just went ahead and welded everything in. Just wanted to show you all the spot welds that need to be replaced. Welded a lap weld up there on the edge, and then ground it down a little bit, and then I'll be working on the other side here shortly. But now the right side's done, and that's about all I need to do besides put some primer on it and close it up. I also put some seam sealer up here on these edges up front. I'll put it here and on the sides, and make sure no water gets in there. So it'll be good. So I've been doing some mock-up on the 70 Mustang, and the left front or right front fender fits really well. I have to do a little bit of adjustment down there at the bottom, but otherwise the doors and everything are lining up really good. But we got a new fender for the driver's side. This came from Mustangs Unlimited, and the gap is pretty nice, top to bottom. And I can adjust it a little bit when I push on it. What I don't like is this part right here. It's the top of this fender where it transitions from the door. The radius doesn't match up, and when you get over to this side, it doesn't match up here. So what I'm going to do is take what's left of the original fender. I'm going to cut this off, and I'm going to section in just this rear piece so that I have the factory shape that matches the door. A little tricky, but I think it's worth it in the end. Some people would probably just beat this in and reshape it with Bondo. I don't like that idea. This is the original fender. The front of it's all beat up. That's why I have no problem doing this. I've already started the cut. I'm going to cut it off here, and then I will make it match the new fender as needed so that I have this nice transition and everything fits up nice. Okay, there's the piece cut off the original fender, and here's the replacement fender like I was saying. And you can look, now this might help, you can see the transition I was talking about. You can see how dramatic that curve is on the original and how flat it is on that piece. So hopefully when this is all said and done, you won't be able to tell that this was cut apart, and it'll look more like the original fender. Well, there it is with the original corner cut off, and this is how the new piece fits up. We've got maybe a little more trimming to do, but I've got it following the lines real good, and I'm going to set it up like this and mock it up on the car, make sure it lines up. If it's good, I'll tack it in place and drive on from there. Okay, there it is mocked up. I didn't tack it yet. You can see down here it gets a little bit tight, so I'm gonna have to custom trim that a little bit to get it up into shape, but it matches the layout of the door now. And once I get it all tacked into place, blend it out, it'll look just fine. Alright, I've done the final fitment of the piece. I'm happy with the gap, the way it looks. Right, there's the cut line I made where I collapsed that section in, and then everything else lines up real nice. I prepped it, and I'm just going to weld it on. There it is, tacked into place. Lines up real nice. Well, there it is, all tacked in, blended. Now you can see that gap turned out real nice. Now all I need to do is take it back off the car and finish welding up the spot welds. There's a couple in here, and a couple up on top up here, and then I'll also roll this edge around a little bit more here and tack it in. So that's all it needs. A couple other things I found on this Fender. This front section up here, this corner, was sticking out too far, so I made a little slit cut there, and I'm gonna tack that back in. Down here, this lower section stuck out about 1/4 of an inch, so I did a relief cut, broke the spot welds loose, pushed it back in, and then when I test fit the headlight panel, this section here, as you can see, I cut it, but this was too long, so I put a relief cut. I'm going to push that back up in place, weld that, and it'll take care of that gap, and it also put the piece in the proper location, so when the headlight bezel goes on, it'll look good. Okay, there it is, all filled in. We got a good gap going, and next step is to get some primer on it. I've had several viewers and subscribers asking about this 70 Mustang we've been working on. Of course, you know from the other videos, we put floor pans in it, replaced the cowl, did some quarter panel repairs and a few other pieces like the fenders. But at this point, we've got all the panels painted. We've blacked out the whole front section, and we removed all the suspension, not only to paint it, but also we're upgrading it. We're putting in new control arms, new springs, converting it to disc brakes. So all that's going to take place. But just want to give you an overview of how this thing turned out. I think it looks great. As you know, there was I plug welded this here. I think I may have showed. Closed up that hole. Didn't really have to do much up here besides the cowl. You know, this whole assembly was replaced. Reused the factory plates here. So this turned out really well. Of course, we got the color all the way up in the jambs, and this is grabber blue, which was a color they used on these Mustangs. Everything's painted inside and out. The hood and everything else is painted. But what we're going to do is get the suspension on, and we're also going to install the engine and transmission and the driveline, the rest of it for the customer. So once all that's done and the car is completely sanded and buffed, then we'll come back and we're going to lay out the stripes so that it'll have the kind of a Boss 302 stripe on it. And I wish you could see this in person. The blue is just popping so good. I love the way it looks. Of course, having all the dents out, there were dents in the roof and different places, so you can see how smooth this is. And of course, we're going to add the louvers to the back window. We're also going to put the wing on the deck lid, and we have new mirrors to go on it as well, factory style mirrors. So really looking forward to having this together. Of course, this car will have a vintage air kit, power steering, power brakes, and a 302 automatic. So just a little update for you. Thought you might want to see it. All right, let's go. Braking period, 15 minutes. Okay, so you've heard it run. Now the next step we're going to do is pull the radiator back out, fan, alternator. We heard the water pump has a squeak to it, so that's going to be replaced. We're going to let the owner decide on that one, what he wants, whether it's aluminum or chrome. But now we're going to get it back up in the air, pull off the stock manifolds. We've got a set of headers to go on it. And at that point, I can progress with putting on the power steering, the AC, and get all that configured. And then we're going to also swap out the valve covers and put on some chrome ones, so it'll look a lot dressier when it's done. But we wanted to leave the stock manifolds on it for the test fire, and it turned out good. Sounds real good. We're happy with it. The owner's happy with it, and we'll progress from there. Here's just a quick little shot of the Mustang in its current state. See the wheels are on it. We're making progress on the interior. Got most of the dash in. Let me light this up for you. There's the interior lights, new lights, and then also, kind of hard to see, but replace all the bulbs and the gauges, so that's working good. Got the door panels all redone. These are the originals. Had to blast them, get them cleaned up good. All new seals. Of course, the new mirrors. Had to locate the post here, and then all the interiors repainted. The plastic panels or fiberglass panels. Of course, the headliner's in. We're working on the seats right now, and of course we have carpet and everything else to go in it. The car has the louvers, and we're going to end up painting this area here a flat black or a semi-gloss black, along with we're going to put stripes on it, like similar to Boss 302 style stripes. And of course it's got a wing that goes on it on the deck lid as well. Oh, here's another thing. This is the AC center vents and the side vent there. Those are from Vintage Air. So it's coming along. We've got the I think I may have shown this before, I'm not sure. We went with the Concours style suspension components, and making progress. Now that we've got it running, we can continue on and try to get this thing finished out soon. Okay, gang, we finally got this 70 Mustang finished up and cleaned it up, and you can probably see in the other videos the work we had to do to it, and the repairs and all that sort of thing. But I'll let you know, we did put floor pans in it, replaced the cowl, rebuilt the quarter panels, and we painted it up. We added the wing, we added the louvers in the back, we painted the rear tail panel of the black, we added the stripes to give it a Boss kind of look, and of course this color is grabber blue, and things are looking pretty good. We added the hood locks, chin spoiler, and eventually it's going to have some different wheels on it, I think, but that's what it has for now. We also added power steering, power brakes, Vintage air conditioning, changed over the interior, which was all blue to black, as you can see. Added some speakers. We upgraded the sound system to where it has a MP3 player, but it looks like a vintage kit. Added the steering wheel. Dual exhaust. Oops, sorry, dual exhaust. Sounds pretty healthy. We also put in the factory style mirrors that it should have had. pulleys. Of course, all the aluminum and chrome goodies. Like I said before, the vintage air kit. All new brakes, new suspension under the front, new springs. See if I can get you a shot here. I must say it turned out pretty good. Pretty proud of this car. The only other thing that needs to be changed right now is the gas cap. Needs to have a new one. And of course these, like I said, the wheels need to be upgraded, but for now they'll do until those tires wear out, and I'm sure the owner's probably going to look at putting some better looking wheels on it. But there you have it, 1970 fastback Mustang, all redone. I like it.